Elijah the Tishbite, who lived among the settlers of Gilead, confronted Ahab. "As the eternal God of Israel lives, whom I serve, in the coming years there will be a severe drought in the land. Not a drop of dew or rain will fall until I say so." The Eternal told Elijah, "Leave here quickly, go east and stay by the brook Kerith, east of the Jordan River. You can drink fresh water from the brook, and I will command the ravens to feed you." Elijah obeyed the voice of the Eternal. He settled near the brook Kerith, east of the Jordan. The ravens brought him food in the morning and evening, and he drank from the brook. After a while, the brook dried up due to lack of rain, and the Eternal said to Elijah, "Go to Zarephath in Sidon and stay there. I have instructed a woman living there to provide you with food." Elijah went to Zarephath, and at the entrance of the city he found a widow gathering wood. He asked her, "Please, could you bring me a jug of water? I am thirsty." As she went to get the water, he added, "And please bring me something to eat." She responded, "As the Eternal your God lives, I swear I have nothing to eat. I have a vessel of flour and a little oil in a bottle. I am gathering some sticks to prepare something for my son and me. After that, we have nothing left but to die." Elijah told her, "Do not worry, do as you said, but first make a small cake for me and bring it here." Hello, everyone. Before we begin, I want to invite you all to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. Don't forget to share with a friend and activate the notification bell to not miss any new content. And in the comments, tell us what part of the video you like the most. Then prepare a meal with what is left for you and your son. The Eternal God of Israel says, "The vessel of flour will not be empty, and the bottle of oil will not run out until the Eternal sends rain on the land and ends this drought." She went and did exactly what Elijah had asked, and it happened as he said. Every day there was food for her and her son. The vessel of flour was never empty, and the bottle of oil did not run out. The promise of the Eternal was fulfilled just as Elijah had said. After a while, the widow's son became ill. His illness worsened, and at a certain moment he stopped breathing. The woman said to Elijah, "O man of God, have you come here to interfere in my life, expose my sin, and kill my son?" Elijah said, "Give me your son." He took the child from her arms, carried him to the room where he was staying, and prayed, "O Eternal my God, why have you brought this misfortune upon this widow who has welcomed me into her home? Why did you take the life of her son?" He stretched himself 3 times over the child's body, always praying, "O Eternal my God, return the breath to this child." The Eternal heard Elijah's prayer, and the child revived. Elijah took the child, brought him down, and gave him to his mother. He said, "Here is your son, he is alive." The woman said to Elijah, "Now I understand, you are a man of God. When you speak, it is the Eternal who speaks, it is the truth." After a long time, in the 3rd year of the drought, the word of the Eternal came to Elijah, "Present yourself to Ahab, I will make it rain on the land." Elijah set out to meet the king. At that time, the situation was very severe in Samaria. Meanwhile, Ahab was talking with Obadiah, who was in charge of the palace and a man who feared the Eternal. There was a time when Jezebel tried to exterminate the prophets of the Eternal. Obadiah gathered 100 prophets and hid them in 2 caves, 50 in each, providing water and food for them. Ahab ordered Obadiah, "Search the land, looking in the springs and brooks for some grass to feed our horses and mules." They divided the territory and began the search. Ahab went in one direction and Obadiah in another. Obadiah followed a path and met Elijah. Obadiah bowed in reverence and exclaimed, "Is it you, Elijah, my lord?" Elijah replied, "Yes, it is I. Go and tell your lord that I have found Elijah." But Obadiah said, "What have I done to deserve this? Ahab will kill me. As the Eternal lives, there is no country or kingdom where the king has not sent people to search for you." When they returned and said, "We searched everywhere but did not find him," Ahab made that country or kingdom swear that you were not really there. Now you tell me, "Go and tell your lord that Elijah has been found." As soon as I leave, the Spirit of the Eternal will take you somewhere unknown. You will disappear, my information will not be confirmed, and I will be killed. I have faithfully served the Eternal since I was a child. Has no one told you what I did when Jezebel was killing the prophets of the Eternal? I risked my life hiding 100 prophets in 2 caves, 50 in each, and providing them with water and food. Now you want me to expose myself by telling the king, "Elijah has been found." Without a doubt he will kill me." Elijah said, "As the Lord of the angelic hosts lives, whom I serve, today I will present myself to King Ahab." So Obadiah went immediately to find the king to report the news. Ahab went to meet Elijah. As soon as he saw Elijah, Ahab exclaimed, "Is it really you, troubler of Israel?" Elijah replied, "It was not I who brought this trouble upon Israel, it was you and your government. You abandoned the ways of the Eternal and his commandments to follow the Baals. Gather all Israel on Mount Carmel. Do not miss Jezebel's protege, the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of the goddess of prostitution, Asherah." Ahab summoned all the people of Israel, especially the prophets, to gather on Mount Carmel. Elijah challenged the people, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Eternal is the true God, follow the Eternal, but if Baal is, follow Baal. Decide." No one answered anything. The people did not move. Elijah said, "I am the only prophet of the Eternal left in Israel, but there are 450 prophets of Baal. Let the prophets of Baal bring 2 bulls, kill one of them, and prepare the meat on the altar with wood, but do not light the fire. I will prepare the other bull and place it on the wood, but I will not light the fire either. Then call on your gods, and I will call on the Eternal. The God who answers with fire is indeed God." Everyone agreed. "Good idea, let's do it." Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose a bull and prepare it first, since you are the majority. Call on your God, but do not light the fire." They took the bull, prepared the animal for sacrifice, and called on Baal. They called all morning, "O Baal, answer us." But nothing happened, no sign of a response. Desperate, they jumped and danced around the altar. At noon, Elijah began to mock them. "Shout louder, after all he is a god. Maybe he is meditating somewhere or busy with some task. Perhaps he is traveling. Do you think he might be sleeping and has overslept? In that case, you need to wake him up." They started shouting even louder and cut themselves with knives and swords, a common ritual among them, until they were covered in blood. They continued like this until the evening. They performed all their rituals and tricks until the time of the evening sacrifice, but nothing happened, no sign of a response. Finally, Elijah said to the people, "Enough. Now it is my turn. Come here." They gathered around him. Elijah repaired the altar that was in ruins, chose 12 stones, one for each tribe of Jacob, the same Jacob to whom the Eternal had said, "From now on you will be called Israel." Elijah built an altar with the 12 stones in honor of the Eternal, then dug a wide trench around the altar, placed the wood on it, prepared the bull, and arranged the meat on the wood. Then he ordered, "Fill the jars with water and pour it over the bull and the wood." He ordered again, "Do it again." They did it. He said again, "Do it one more time." And they did. The altar was soaked and the trench was filled with water. At the time of the evening sacrifice, the prophet Elijah approached the altar and prayed, "O eternal God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let everyone know today that you are God in Israel, that I am your servant, and that I do these things by your command. Answer me, O eternal, answer me, and show this people that you, O eternal, are giving them a chance to repent." At that moment the fire of the Eternal fell and consumed the offering, the wood, the stones, the earth, and even the water in the trench. The people saw what happened and all bowed in awe and worshipped, exclaiming, "The Eternal is God, the Eternal is God." Elijah said, "Capture the prophets of Baal, do not let them escape." The people seized them, and Elijah took them to the brook Kishon, where he killed them. Elijah said to Ahab, "Get up, eat and drink, it is time to celebrate. The rain is coming, I already hear its sound." Ahab got up, ate and drank. Meanwhile, Elijah climbed to the top of Carmel, bowed in prayer with his face between his knees, and said to his servant, "Stand up and look toward the sea." He looked and told Elijah, "I see nothing." Elijah said, "Keep looking. If necessary, look 7 times. On the 7th time he said, "Look, a cloud rises from the sea. It is very small, the size of a person's hand." Elijah ordered, "Run and tell Ahab, hitch your chariot and go down the mountain before the rain catches you." Everything happened very quickly. The sky darkened and the wind brought the clouds until it began to rain heavily. Meanwhile, Ahab was heading in his chariot to Jezreel. The Eternal gave Elijah extraordinary strength, who tucked his cloak into his belt and ran ahead of Ahab's chariot all the way to Jezreel. Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, including the killing of the prophets. Jezebel immediately sent a messenger to threaten Elijah, saying, "May the gods punish you for this. I will take revenge on you. I swear that by this time tomorrow you will be as dead as those prophets." When Elijah realized the situation, he fled to Beersheba in the far south of Judah. He left his servant there and walked another day into the desert. He reached a broom tree, sat in its shade, and prayed to die. "Enough, O Eternal, take my life. I am ready to descend to the grave with my ancestors." Exhausted, he fell asleep under the broom tree. Suddenly an angel woke him and said, "Get up and eat." Looking around, to his surprise, he found a cake baked on coals and a jar of water near his head. He ate and went back to sleep. The angel of the Eternal returned, woke him and said, "Get up and eat a little more. You have a long journey ahead." He got up, ate, drank, and set out. Sustained by the food, he walked for 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the Mount of God. When he arrived, he entered a cave and slept. The word of the Eternal came to him. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied, "I have dedicated my life entirely to the Lord of the angelic hosts. The people of Israel have abandoned their covenant, destroyed the places of worship, and killed your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they want to take my life too." The Eternal said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Eternal. The Eternal will pass by." A very strong wind swept the mountain, breaking and crushing the rocks before the Eternal, but the Eternal was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Eternal was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake there was fire, but the Eternal was not in the fire. Finally, after the fire, a gentle breeze began to blow. When Elijah felt the breeze, he covered his head with his cloak, went to the entrance of the cave, and waited there. A soft voice asked, "So Elijah, tell me again, what are you doing here?" Elijah repeated, "I have dedicated my life entirely to the service of the Eternal, the Lord of the angelic hosts, because the people of Israel have abandoned their covenant, destroyed the places of worship, and killed your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they want to take my life too." The Eternal said, "Go back the way you came, through the desert to Damascus. When you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael as king over Syria. Then it will be the turn to anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, king of Israel. Finally, you shall anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat of Abel-Meholah, to succeed you as prophet. Whoever escapes from Hazael, Jehu will kill. Whoever escapes from Jehu, Elisha will kill. Meanwhile, I will preserve 7,000 people who have not bowed to the god Baal, lips that have not kissed his image." Elijah found Elisha, son of Shaphat, in a field where 12 yoke of oxen were plowing. Elisha was driving one of them. Elijah approached and put his cloak on Elisha. Elisha left the oxen and walked with Elijah, but suddenly asked, "Please let me say goodbye to my father and mother, then I will go with you." Elijah replied, "Go, but do not forget what I have just done to you." Elisha returned and killed the 2 oxen. With the plow he made a fire, cooked the meat, and gave a farewell feast. Then he set out with Elijah, becoming his assistant. After this, it happened that Naboth of Jezreel owned a vineyard next to the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria. One day Ahab asked Naboth, "Give me your vineyard so I can turn it into a garden, since it is next to my palace. I will give you a much better vineyard in exchange, or if you prefer, I will pay you in money." But Naboth replied to Ahab, "The Eternal forbid me to sell the land that is my family's inheritance." Ahab returned home upset by Naboth's response. "I will never give the Lord my family's inheritance." He went to bed and refused to eat. His wife Jezebel asked him, "What is wrong? Why are you like this without wanting to eat?" He said, "I spoke to Naboth of Jezreel and asked him, 'Give me your vineyard. I will pay you its value or give you another vineyard in exchange.' But he told me, 'I will never give my vineyard to the Lord.'" Jezebel said, "And does the king of Israel need to worry about that? Aren't you the one in charge here? Get up, eat, and cheer up. I will take care of this. I will get Naboth's vineyard for you." She wrote letters to all the authorities and leaders of Naboth's city, signed by the king and sealed with the official seal. She wrote, "Proclaim a day of fasting and seat Naboth in a prominent place. Put 2 scoundrels beside him to accuse him. You have blasphemed against God and the king. Then take him out of the city and stone him to death." That is what they did. The most influential men of the city followed Jezebel's instructions as written in the letter. They proclaimed a day of fasting and seated Naboth in a place of honor before everyone. The two men accused him. He has blasphemed against God and the king. His companions took him out and cruelly stoned him. When she learned that Naboth had been stoned to death, Jezebel told Ahab, "Take possession of Naboth's vineyard in Jezreel, the vineyard he denied you. Naboth is dead." When Ahab learned that Naboth was dead, he went to take possession of the vineyard. Then the word of the Eternal came to Elijah the Tishbite, "Arise and go to meet Ahab of Samaria, king of Israel. You will find him in Naboth's vineyard. He is there to take possession of the property. Tell him, 'Thus says the Eternal, what is happening here? First murder, then theft.' Then tell him, 'Thus says the Eternal, in the same place where the dogs licked the blood of Naboth, they will also lick yours.'" Ahab said to Elijah, "Have you found me, my enemy?" Elijah replied, "Indeed, I have found you, and since you sold yourself to commit this sin against the Eternal, he says, I will destroy you and annihilate your descendants, killing all who are males and have any relation to the name of Ahab. I will do to you what I did to Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and to Baasha, son of Ahijah. You have provoked my wrath by leading Israel to sin. As for Jezebel, says the Eternal, the dogs will devour Jezebel near the wall of Jezreel. All who belong to Ahab's family and die in the city will be devoured by dogs, and those who die in the field will be devoured by ravens." Ahab, influenced by his wife Jezebel, committed all kinds of sins against the Eternal. He was much worse than his predecessors. He engaged in perverse acts before the idols, like the Amorites whom the Eternal had expelled from the land of Israel. When Ahab heard Elijah's words, he tore his own clothes, wore sackcloth, and fasted. He even slept in sackcloth and walked with his head down. Then the Eternal said to Elijah the Tishbite, "Notice that Ahab has obeyed my word and humbled himself before me. Because of his repentance, I will not bring disaster during Ahab's lifetime, but during his son's reign." After Ahab's death, Moab rebelled against Israel. One day, Ahaziah fell from the terrace of his palace in Samaria and was severely injured. Therefore he sent messengers to consult Baal-zebub, god of Ekron. "Will I recover from this accident?" Then the angel of the Eternal said to Elijah the Tishbite, "Arise and go to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria and tell them, 'Is there no God in Israel that you go to consult Baal-zebub, god of Ekron? Thus says the Eternal, you will not leave this bed, you will die there.'" The messengers returned, and the king asked, "Why did you return so quickly? What happened?" They replied, "We met a man who told us, 'Return to the king who sent you and tell him, Thus says the Eternal, is there no God in Israel that you go to consult Baal-zebub, god of Ekron? Therefore do not worry, you will not leave this bed, you are a dead man.'" The king asked, "Tell me more about this man you met. What was he like?" They said, "He wore a garment of hair and a leather belt." The king said, "It must be Elijah the Tishbite." The king sent a captain with 50 men to fetch Elijah, who was sitting calmly on a hill. The captain arrived and said, "Man of God, by order of the king, come down." Elijah replied to the captain, "If I am truly a man of God, may a lightning bolt strike you and your 50 soldiers." Suddenly a lightning bolt came out of nowhere and consumed the captain and the 50 soldiers. The king sent another captain with 50 soldiers. They also said, "Man of God, by order of the king, come down." Elijah replied, "If I am truly a man of God, may a lightning bolt strike you and your 50 soldiers." Immediately a lightning bolt fell from the sky and consumed the captain and his soldiers. The king sent a third captain with 50 soldiers. For the third time, a captain and 50 soldiers approached Elijah. The captain knelt and pleaded, "O man of God, have mercy on my life and the lives of these 50 soldiers. Twice already a lightning bolt has struck and destroyed a captain and his 50 soldiers. Please have mercy." The angel of the Eternal said to Elijah, "Do not be afraid, go down with him." Elijah got up, went down, and accompanied him to the king's presence. Elijah said to the king, "Thus says the Eternal, because you sent to consult Baal-zebub, god of Ekron, as if there were no God in Israel, you will not leave this bed alive. You are a dead man." And he died, as the Eternal had announced through Elijah. Since Ahaziah had no sons, his brother Joram succeeded him on the throne in the 2nd year of the reign of Joram, son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. The rest of Ahaziah's life is recorded in the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. Shortly before the Eternal took Elijah to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha set out on a walk from Gilgal. Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, the Eternal has sent me to Bethel." Elisha said, "As the Eternal lives, I will not lose sight of you." And the two went to Bethel. In Bethel, the disciples of the prophet saw Elisha and said, "Do you know that today the Eternal will take your master?" He replied, "Yes, I know, but I do not want to talk about it." Later Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, the Eternal has sent me to Jericho." Elisha replied, "As the Eternal lives, I will not lose sight of you." And the two went to Jericho. In Jericho, the disciples of the prophet said to Elisha, "Do you know that today the Eternal will take your master?" He replied, "Yes, I know, but I do not want to talk about it." Later Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, the Eternal has sent me to the Jordan." Elisha replied, "As the Eternal lives, I will not lose sight of you." And the two continued together. 50 disciples of the prophets watched from a distance as the two stopped at the bank of the Jordan River. Elijah took his cloak, rolled it up, and struck the water. The river divided, and the two crossed on dry ground. When they reached the other side, Elijah said to Elisha, "What can I do for you before I am taken? Ask what you want." Elisha said, "I want your life doubled in mine. I want to be a man of God like you." Elijah said, "It is a difficult request, but if you see when I am taken, you will receive what you asked. But keep watching." That is what happened. As they walked and talked, suddenly a chariot of fire with horses of fire appeared between them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw the entire scene and exclaimed, my father, you were like the chariots and horsemen of Israel." When there was nothing more to see, he tore his cloak in pieces. Then he took Elijah's cloak, which had fallen, returned to the bank of the Jordan, and stood there holding Elijah's cloak, the only thing left of him. He struck the water and said, "Where is now the Eternal, the God of Elijah?" When the cloak touched the water, the river divided and Elisha crossed. The disciples of the prophets from Jericho also saw the scene from a distance and commented, "The spirit of Elijah is in Elisha." Therefore they welcomed and respected him as a prophet. They said to Elisha, "We are at your service. We have 50 reliable men and can send them to search for your master. Maybe the spirit of the Eternal has taken him to a mountain or left him in some remote valley." Elisha said, "Do not worry about that." But they insisted so much that he relented. "All right, send them." They sent the 50 men, who spent 3 days searching for the prophet in mountains and valleys but did not find him. Finally they returned to Jericho, where Elisha was. He said, "Didn't I tell you? Do you believe now?" One day the city leader said to Elisha, "Master, you can see how our city is well located, but the water is bad, so the vegetation does not grow." He said, "Bring me a new bowl with some salt in it." They brought the bowl. He went to the spring, poured the salt, and prophesied, "Thus says the Eternal, I have purified this water. It will never again cause death or harm the land." Indeed, the water was purified and remains clean to this day, as Elisha said. On another occasion, Elisha was on his way to Bethel, and some children came out of the city and started mocking him. "Hey, bald man, get out of here." Elisha turned, looked at them, and cursed them in the name of the Eternal. 2 bears came out of the forest and attacked them. 42 children were mauled. Elisha went up to Mount Carmel and then returned to Samaria. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. Don't forget to share with a friend and activate the notification bell to not miss any new content. And in the comments, tell us what part of the video you liked the most.